Wiki, altrightnovelist.com. As you can see, I am in a room here. I am not in my car. So therefore, you can surmise one of two things. You can either think that I'm not living in my car yet and feel relieved and or disappointed about that, or you may surmise that I am in fact living in my car, but that I have just broken into somebody's house and decided to do a video, to broadcast a video from the bedroom of this stranger's house, just to throw everybody for a loop. It could be one of those two things, and I'm not going to give it away. You'll have to figure it out for yourself. Anyway, to get to the meat of the matter here, yesterday I recorded a video about incels and the response to the Alec Manassian massacre in Toronto, Canada. Alec Manassian ostensibly being an incel himself, and I thought about how it was, or I discussed rather, how it was difficult to find conversations by incels or podcasts by incels where they discussed or commented on the event and the significance of it. Since then, one of you has sent me a couple of podcasts or a couple of links to places where it is being discussed, and I am going to check those out just to see if there's anything interesting that they have to say. Like I said, it was surprisingly hard to find, because you think there's pretty much every group is represented on the internet today, and you can find them with the stroke of a few letters in a search engine. But in this case, it was hard to find incels commenting on Alec Manassian and the Toronto massacre. But then I also discussed a little bit about how what I did sample from the incels that I could find was generally some variation of the woe is me kind of, and again, I wasn't meaning it in a derogatory way. I wasn't meaning it in a, I'm a Chad, you're a virgin, I'm a winner, you're a loser kind of way. I wasn't meaning it in a, clean your room, bucko kind of way. I wasn't saying anything like that. I wasn't assuming superiority to them or saying that if they just tried a little harder, things would work out for them, and that they just needed to project more confidence or whatever, or any of that self-help crap, because I don't believe in any of that. But I did stumble upon what I thought was a stumbling block, keeping incels from being interesting, having interesting things to say, which is when you embrace the term incel, meaning involuntary celibate, and you make that the centerpiece of your identity. What you're basically saying to the world is, I'm frustrated. I want this thing. I want sex. I want companionship. I want validation, but I'm not getting it. Therefore, I am frustrated. And you make that really what you're about. Okay? I'm not even saying, if you do desire this thing and you're not getting it, and you're frustrated, I'm not saying there's anything in that that's self-denigrating to your identity, because that's more or less what it means to be human most of the time. Most of us have things that we want. We don't get the things that we want, and we are frustrated by that fact. But not just identifying, but making it the centerpiece of who you are, saying, I am incel, that makes it so that your frustrations are what you have to more or less revolve around all the time. So I hope that was more or less understood, what I was saying the other day. But I've been thinking about it a little bit more, and I wanted to add a little bit more to the general critique that I had of the incel perspective. Now, this is again all offered in a way from I think somebody who would consider himself an ally of the incels, because just like I don't identify as a MGTOW, but I am a MGTOW fellow traveler, and I relate to a lot of the concerns of MGTOW. Same applies here in certain ways with the incel. So my critique here is not offered is offered as an ally, but I hope that there will not be too much defensiveness or too much response that that I am I don't know, just being just how do I say it? It's like, I guess if I can relate it to MGTOW and how some of the videos that I have recorded which relate to MGTOW got this kind of reflexive pushback from MGTOW, as if they were thinking I was saying something really they were just used to hearing this generic anti-MGTOW message, and they thought that since I was critiquing MGTOW in some way, that therefore I was one of these generic people who was saying these stupid and easily refutable things, when I wasn't, and I was improperly categorized in that manner. And I hope that I will not be responded to in the same way when I say what I'm about to say concerning the incels. Okay, well, it seems to me that there's something about making your frustration with your situation the refrain, the thing that you keep coming back to over and over and over again. And as I said, when you identify as an incel, when what you're discussing is your situation or your plight as an incel, then that's what it is all about. Ultimately, what it comes down to is your frustration with being an incel, your frustration with wanting something, i.e. sex, companionship, marriage, relationship, however you would define it, maybe all of the above, and not getting it because you're just not seen as desirable in today's culture for one reason or another. Or maybe you think you would never be desirable. I'm not saying that about you. I'm saying maybe that's what you would say. So when that is your centerpiece, that is what it's all about. And it seems to me that people on YouTube who make that their the thing that they relate to the most, it's like every video is just about, I'm frustrated, I'm angry and frustrated, I'm angry and frustrated, I'm angry and frustrated. Now, far be it from me to be down on anger or frustration, because you can see plenty of things that I have posted here on YouTube, and plenty of things that I have written, which clearly have maybe just a modicum, maybe just a smidge of anger to them. I don't know, maybe. So far be it from me to make that the critique. I'm not saying don't be so angry. But I think it goes beyond that. I think there is something about the state of embracing the incel label that it's like it yokes you to this thing. It yokes you to this very thing that you should be wanting to be unyoked from. Embracing the label makes you yoked to the very thing that you should be seeking to get freedom from. Because when you say, I am an involuntary celibate, and what you're saying is, I want it, but I don't get it. It's not a voluntary thing. I haven't chosen it. If I could make it be different, I would accept, I would take that in a heartbeat. If I could choose not to be celibate, I would choose it in a heartbeat. But instead, I am involuntarily celibate. So I'm looked down on, I'm seen as repulsive, and I'm frustrated by that, I'm saddened by that, I'm angered by that, I'm driven to despair over that. All right, fine, understandable. But there's something that just deflates the spirit, I think, about just being complacent, about being incel. And when you embrace a label, you are complacent because you're saying, this is me. Not only is this me, this is how I identify, this is how I relate to the world. And it's like you're basically saying, by doing this, you're saying, I'm frustrated because I'm not being thrown these scraps, But if things turned around and suddenly I was, my masters were throwing me scraps from the dinner table, I would gobble them up just like a dog. All right, you understand what I'm saying here? I would gobble them down. If the goodies that I'm being denied right now were suddenly open to me, I would just rush in and take it. What are you saying there? You're saying I'm yoked, I'm tied down, I am enslaved, and that's where I am. That's who I am. That's what I'm going to be. Okay? I'm not somebody who says, work on yourself, make yourself more, go hit the gym or whatever. I'm not against hitting the gym, of course. This isn't, I'm not against doing the best you can to try to be as healthy as possible. I think that's a good thing. But I'm not saying the solution to your problem is to hit the gym and then to be more confident or any of that crap, any of that PUA nonsense. My take, my frustration with the incel group is that they seem to be mired in their enslavement. Okay, some people are enslaved. Don't get me wrong. There are some people who get what they want, and they're enslaved to getting what they want. And they're debased, even though they're maybe seen as successful. I still see them as debased in their souls because they're they're, like I've said before in a previous video, they're jumping through the hoops like a circus animal, and then they get their treat. They get their doggy bone. Okay, if we're sticking with the canine metaphor here, the idea that we are being debased, and that we are debasing ourselves. A lot of people who are quote-unquote successful are successful because they've jumped through the hoops that they've been told to jump through, and now they're getting their treats. Okay? And I see that as being no better a state than somebody who refuses to jump through hoops and doesn't get his treats. I see that, and in fact, the person who doesn't jump through the hoops is, who has chosen not to do that which would enslave him, is better, I think. And that's the person that I strive to be. That's the message that I have. But the point that I'm making here is, if you are somebody who gets what you want because you do all the things that society or culture or your masters would have you do in order to get your treat, that doesn't make you a man. That makes you debased. And what I would say to the incels, to bring it back around to them, from my perception, is when you project yourself, when you decide that here's what I am, I'm somebody who wants something and doesn't get it. I'm somebody who would dearly love to have this thing, but I'm being denied this thing because I'm ugly or unappealing or nerdy or a loser or whatever. Well, you should work on that, okay? That's my frustration with you. Work on this mental enslavement. Work on this feeling that you have that you want to have this thing, but you can't have it, so now you're just frustrated all the time. Okay? Work on removing yourself from your attachment to this thing that you want that you're not getting. Okay? It's possible to do so. I'm not saying it's possible to stop desiring something that you desire, but it's possible to not define yourself by not getting the thing that you it's possible to avoid defining yourself as a person who wants something and doesn't get it, which is what you're doing when you say I am incel. You're basically saying it's not fair that these guys who are successful are getting all this stuff, in this case, sex. It's not fair that these guys are getting laid and I'm not. Or maybe you're not saying it's not fair. Maybe you're just saying it makes me feel left out. It makes me feel like a loser, etc. and so on. Well, there's no reason you should look up to these people who are just getting their treat by performing their trick for their masters. Again, there's nothing wrong with being low status. There's nothing wrong with being high status. The thing is to lose your attachment to status. And it seems that when you are incel, you're continuing to define yourself as somebody who is, who wants something, who wants this thing, but isn't getting it, but who wants it, but who isn't getting it. And so all of your discourse and all of your thinking and all of your entire mindset just seems to revolve around, inevitably following from your embracing the term incel. It all seems to inevitably revolve around you, your debasement, your enslavement. Okay, because you are debased whether the thing you want is being denied you, or whether the thing you want is something that you are willing to sell yourself out, sacrifice your essence, sacrifice your humanity in some cases to get. In either case, you have debased yourself. And my whole message is stop debasing yourself. Okay? That's my message to everybody else. It's my message to myself too, because it's something I struggle with as well. And so that is my problem. That is my difficulty with the incel group. Now, somebody can show that they've understood what I've presented here and show where I am wrong. I'm willing to listen. But again, my critique is very different from the Chad critique of incels, as I hope is clear in what I have said over the course of the last 20 minutes or so. And hopefully I've said it with minimum circumlocution, although I probably could have been a little bit more to the point, let's face it. But, you know, some days are, some days you feel like a circumlocucious nut, so other days you don't. Anyway, thank you for watching. My name is Andy Nowicki. Please check out my work at altrightnovelist.com.